Courtly love. Like her mother Eleanor of Aquitaine, Marie of France was a decisive influence on the culture of courtly love, in French amour courtois, which developed from the proliferation of the heresy of Catharism. 28 Courtly love poetry emerged in southern France in the 12th century through the work of the troubadours, poet minstrels who were either retained by a royal court or traveled from town to town. Cathar themes are pervasive in their songs of the troubadours, with many of the troubadours themselves being Cathars, or simply reflecting the values of their patrons. The troubadours were inspired by the Sufi mystics of the Islamic world. Wandering Sufis, traveled on foot from city to city, teaching songs and cryptic words, and sometimes not speaking at all. Sufi musical jesters and ariakins, harlequins, dressed in patchwork costumes, the kurka of the Sufis, originally made from shreds and patches. Pihidi, in the History of the Arabs, commented that, the troubadours, resembled Arab singers not only in sentiment and character but also in the very forms of their minstrelsy. Certain titles which these Provençal singers gave to their songs are but translations from Arabic titles. 29 According to J. B. Trend, in The Legacy of Islam, the poems of the troubadours, are, in matter, form and style closely connected with Arabic idealism and Arabic poetry written in Spain. 30. In the love poetry of the Sufis, originally inspired by the Song of Solomon, in praise to the bride of God, sometimes God is addressed directly, but often the deity is personified by a woman. It was the goddess worship of the Sufis, expressed in the form of love poetry dedicated to ladies, and a deference towards women, which became known as the art of chivalry. The predominant theme in troubadour poetry was unrequited love for noble ladies, who were usually married. This love took on a quasi-religious tone, their love becoming veneration, elevating the lady to near divine status. The most famous of the early troubadours was Eleanor Aquitaine's grandfather, William IX, Duke of Aquitaine. Throughout her marriage to Louis VII, Eleanor filled her court with poets and artists, and she did the same at Henry's court in Normandy. She was patron of literary figures such as was, Benoit de Saint-Maur, 1154–1173, and the young troubadour Bernard de Ventadour, one of the greatest medieval poets, who would follow her to the Plantagenet court of Henry II in 1152, and remain with her there 3 years, probably as her lover. 31. The French poet Benoit de Saint-Maur wrote a 40,000-line poem Le Roman de Troyes, the Romance of Troy, between 1155 and 1160. Benite, is mentioned at the end of Roman de Raux by the Norman poet Robert Was, c. 1110, after 1174. Was's extant works also include the Roman de Brut, which narrates the founding of Britain by Brutus of Troy to the end of the legendary British history of Monmouth's Historia Regum Britanniae. Was the first to mention the legend of King Arthur's Round Table and the first to ascribe the name Excalibur to Arthur's sword. A large part of the Roman de Raux, which according to was commissioned by Henry II of England, is devoted to William the Conqueror and the Norman conquest of England. When she separated from Henry II in 1170, and set up her own court at Poitiers, Eleanor again surrounded herself with artists and, through her daughter Marie, and became instrumental in turning her court, then frequented by the most famous troubadours of the time, into a center of poetry and a model of courtly life and manners. Marie was also the patroness of the Arthurian poet Chrétien de Troyes and author Andreas Capellanus. Andreas de Amore, usually translated as The Art of Love, written at Marie's request, describes the courts of love presided over by her and the others while also serving as a kind of manual in the art of seduction. It was Marie's influence in the transmission of the culture of courtly love across Europe, which encouraged the composition of Chrétien de Troyes, who assimilated its language into the legends of the Holy Grail, fashioning a new type of narrative based on the matter of Britain, writing 5 romances Eric, Cloges, Lancelot, or Le Chevalier de la Charette, Yvain, or Le Chevalier au Lion, and Perceval, or Le Conte du Graal, written about 1190 AD, the earliest extant work on the Grail. Centering on the legendary King Arthur, The matter of Britain derived from Monmouth's Historia Regum Britanniae. Chrétien de Troyes credits her with the idea for his Lancelot, the Knight of the Cart. It is one of the first stories of the Arthurian legend to feature Lancelot as a prominent character. The narrative tells of the abduction of Queen Guinevere, and is the first text to feature the love affair between Lancelot and Guinevere. After Chrétien's version became popular, it was incorporated into the Lancelot Grail cycle and eventually into the English writer Thomas Malory's influential Le Morte d'Arthur, in the 15th century, which created the image of Camelot most familiar today. Malory firmly identifies Camelot with the Abbey of Winchester, an identification that remained popular for centuries.